Welcome back. The three coins nobody thought twice about. They looked worthless. Just three forgotten coins, buried in change, sitting in drawers, passing through American hands for decades. But what if one of them carried a tiny detail that collectors would pay thousands of dollars to find? The strange part, you could have already held one and never realized what was hiding on it. Today, we're uncovering all three, and the last one may be the coin that changes everything. Three coins, three different dates, three completely different mysteries. But here's the part I want you to remember. We're not going to decide which one matters by looking at it for 5 seconds. We're going to follow the clues, and the first clue is already sitting on the quarter. 1969D. At first, it looks like nothing special. The surface has the kind of wear you'd expect from a coin that's spent years moving through circulation. But then the light catches the fields, and suddenly you notice the marks. Are they simply scratches from circulation? Or is there something about the strike that deserves a closer look? That's the first mystery. Now look at Washington. The hair, the cheek, the lettering, the rim. Don't focus on the dirt. Don't focus on the age. Focus on the details that were created when this coin was struck. Because that's where the story can change. A damaged coin can look spectacular while being completely ordinary. And an ordinary-looking coin can sometimes contain a genuine variety or mint-made error that isn't obvious at first glance. So we need to separate appearance from evidence. The quarter turns over. Now we see the eagle, the arrows, the olive branches, the lettering. And the first question becomes even more important. Does anything look unusual in the actual design? Or are we simply looking at years of contact and wear? Don't answer yet, because there's another detail we haven't checked. The mint mark. That tiny D tells us this quarter was struck at Denver. And that matters because when you're investigating a potentially unusual coin, the date and mint mark are where the investigation begins, not where it ends. Now look at the surface around the lettering, then around Washington's portrait, then the reverse. We're looking for something that doesn't belong, something that doesn't behave like ordinary circulation damage. And here's where today's investigation gets interesting. If we find a feature that appears to have been created during the minting process, the entire conversation changes. But if every unusual mark can be explained by circulation, then this is simply an old quarter that has lived a long life. And we are not going to pretend otherwise, because the real value in coin hunting isn't believing every exciting claim you see online. It's knowing which clue deserves your attention. So before we leave this 1969D quarter, there's one more question. The quarter is still under the light, and now we stop looking at it like a normal piece of pocket change. We start looking at it like evidence. The first thing to confirm is the 1969 date, then the tiny D mint mark. But here's where things get interesting. Because the mint mark alone doesn't make this quarter rare. The real question is, what else is happening around it? Look closely at the fields, then move toward Washington's portrait. The hair details, the lettering, the rim. Every raised surface tells us how strongly the coin was originally struck. And every worn area tells us something about its life afterward. Now turn it over again. The reverse looks familiar, but don't rush past it. Look at the eagle, the arrows, the olive branches, the lettering, and especially the open areas around the design. Because if a strange feature appears only on the surface, we have to ask whether it happened after the coin left the Denver Mint. That's the trap. A scratch can look dramatic. A darkened surface can look rare. Even unusual toning can make an ordinary coin look completely different. But none of those things automatically create collector value. So the investigation becomes more precise. Is this a mint-made characteristic, or a coin that simply had a hard life? The quarter rotates again, and now the marks become easier to understand. Some appear random. Some follow the direction you'd expect from circulation. And if that's all we're seeing, the mystery is nearly over. But then comes the part most casual coin hunters skip, the strike. Look at the fine details. Are they sharp? Are they weak? Are certain areas unusually defined? because strike quality can tell us whether we're dealing with an ordinary worn example or whether the coin deserves further comparison with known varieties. And that's the important distinction. We're not searching for a story that sounds valuable. We're searching for a characteristic that can be identified and verified. So if you have a 1969D Washington quarter sitting in a drawer, don't immediately assume it's rare. But don't automatically spend it just because it looks worn either.
Check the date.
Check the mint mark. Study both sides. Look carefully at the surfaces. And if something genuinely doesn't match a normal example, that's when you stop. Because the next coin in today's investigation creates an entirely different problem. The 1996D Jefferson Nickel doesn't just look old. It has a reddish appearance and visible damage on the obverse. And that creates a much more difficult question. Is that red color telling us something about the coin's original production? Or is it evidence of what happened to the nickel long after it left the mint? That's where the investigation gets even more interesting. The quarter gave us one mystery, but now the nickel looks even more suspicious. A 1996D Jefferson Nickel, old, dirty, and across the front, a noticeable reddish color surrounds areas of the surface. There is also visible damage. At first glance, that combination can make a coin look rare. But here's the question we have to answer. Is the red color actually part of the nickel's original story? Or did something happen to it after it left the mint? Because those are two completely different stories. The coin turns under the light. The reddish area becomes stronger, then weaker. And that immediately gives us our first clue. Color can change dramatically depending on lighting. So we don't stop there. We look at the date. 1996. Then the mint mark. D. Denver. Now look at Jefferson. His hair, his forehead, his cheek. The lettering, and the damaged area. Don't call it an error yet, because a scratch is just a scratch, until evidence proves otherwise. And this is where many coin hunters get caught. They see a strange color. They see damage. They search online. Then they find a huge price attached to a completely different coin, and assume theirs must be the same. That's not how this works. The real investigation starts with one simple question. Could this feature have been created during the minting process? If the answer is no, then we're probably looking at post-mint alteration, environmental exposure, chemical reaction, or ordinary damage. But if something about the feature doesn't behave like normal damage, then we have a reason to keep digging. So now, we move across the reddish area. Look at its boundaries. Does the color appear evenly distributed? Does it concentrate around certain parts of the design? Does it seem to sit on the surface? Or does the metal itself appear different? That distinction matters, because the most interesting part of this nickel may not be the fact that it's reddish. It may be why it's reddish. And there's another clue waiting on the coin. The damage. If the scratches cross through the colored area, they may help us understand the coin's history. But even that won't be enough to call this a mint error. We need multiple clues to point in the same direction. So the nickel goes back under the light. Date, mint mark, portrait, surface, damage, one by one. And suddenly, this seemingly ordinary 1996D Jefferson Nickel has become a much more interesting investigation. But we still don't have the answer, because there's one test left. And that test could tell us whether we're looking at an unusual-looking circulation coin, or a characteristic that actually deserves professional examination. And once we solve that, we'll move to coin number 3, the 1970D Roosevelt Dime, with that subtle blue appearance. And that final coin may force us to ask the most important question of the entire video. When does a strange-looking coin become a coin worth saving? The nickel is still under the light. And now, the red color isn't the most important thing anymore. The damage is. Look closely at the obverse. Where does the damage begin? Where does it end? Does it cut across Jefferson's portrait? Does it interrupt the lettering? Or does it simply sit on the surface like the result of years of circulation? Because here's the problem. A damaged coin can look far more mysterious than it really is. And that's exactly why we can't rush this inspection. The nickel turns slowly. The reddish area catches the light again, but instead of asking, could this be worth a fortune? we ask a better question. Can this appearance be explained? If the reddish color came from environmental exposure, chemical reaction, storage conditions, or another post-mint cause, then the color itself doesn't prove a mint error. And if the scratches happened after the nickel entered circulation, they don't become valuable simply because they look unusual. But now, look at the relationship between the damage and the colored area. That's where the investigation becomes more interesting. If two features overlap, they may give us clues about the coin's history. But even then, one clue isn't enough. We need consistency. The date, the mint mark, the strike, the design, the surface. Everything has to tell the same story. Now look at Jefferson's hair. The highest points should show the effects of circulation. Then move toward the lettering, then the fields. Are the details consistent with normal wear, or is there something that refuses to fit? That is the moment serious coin examination begins. Not when a coin looks strange, but when something can't easily be explained. And here's the reality. Most viral coin videos leave out. Most 1996D Jefferson Nickels are ordinary circulation coins. Finding one with a reddish surface doesn't automatically make it rare. But if a coin shows a genuine mint-made error, recognized variety or exceptional condition, then it's worth taking the next step. Verification, documentation, and when necessary, professional authentication. So don't spend an unusual nickel blindly. But don't believe an enormous price claim blindly either. Investigate first, because the final answer for this nickel is getting closer. And once we finish the last check, we're moving to the smallest coin in today's investigation, a 1970D Roosevelt Dime with a subtle blue shade. And that one will give us another color mystery. But this time, the question will be even simpler. Is the color telling us something about the mint or something about the coin's life afterward? The nickel is out of the frame. And now, the smallest coin of today's investigation takes its place. A 1970D Roosevelt Dime. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Then the light moves across the surface, and something catches your eye. A subtle blue shade. Not bright, not dramatic. Just enough to make you stop and ask, why is this dime blue? That's the mystery. Because color can tell two completely different stories. One story begins inside the mint. The other begins years later, after the coin has already entered circulation. And those two stories can lead to completely different conclusions. So we start where every serious coin investigation should start. The date, 1970. Then the mint mark, D, Denver. Now look at Roosevelt's portrait. Don't chase the blue color yet. Look at the actual design. The hair, the forehead, the cheek, the lettering, the surrounding fields. Are the details sharp? Are they worn? Does the blue shade follow the design? Or does it simply sit across the surface? That question is more important than the color itself, because a strange color doesn't automatically mean a mint error. A coin can change color because of environmental exposure, chemical reactions, improper storage, cleaning, or contact with other materials. And after decades, the result can look surprisingly dramatic. But there's another possibility. If an unusual characteristic can be connected to the actual minting process, then suddenly we have a completely different investigation. So the dime turns, the reverse appears, the torch, the olive branch, the oak branch, the lettering. And now we look for consistency. Does the blue appearance behave the same way across the coin? Does it affect recessed areas? Does it sit on top of the metal? Does it disappear under different lighting? Every answer gives us another clue. And here's the question I want you to keep in your mind. If the blue color disappeared tomorrow, would there still be anything unusual about the coin? If the answer is no, then the color itself may be the entire story. But if something unusual remains underneath, that's when we slow down. Because the goal isn't to find a dramatic-looking coin. The goal is to find a verifiable characteristic. And that brings us to the final stage of today's investigation. 3 coins. 3 suspicious details. The 1969D Washington Quarter, the 1996D Jefferson Nickel, and now this 1970D Roosevelt Dime. But only one thing can separate a strange-looking coin from a genuinely interesting one. Evidence. And before this investigation ends, we're going to put all 3 coins through that final test. The blue shade is still there, but now we stop asking whether it looks unusual. We ask the question that actually matters. Why is it there? The dime moves slowly beneath the light. From one angle, the blue appears stronger. From another, it almost disappears. And that gives us our first important clue. Because genuine mint-made characteristics don't become genuine simply because a camera catches an unusual color. The color has to make sense. So we examine the surface. Does the blue appear to sit on top of the metal? Does it collect around recessed areas? Does it follow the contours of Roosevelt's portrait? Or does it look like the entire surface has changed over time? Every possibility tells a different story. And here's where coin hunters need to be careful. A coin can develop unusual toning or discoloration after leaving the mint. It can be affected by its environment. It can react with chemicals. It can be improperly cleaned. It can even pick up color from materials it has been stored against years later. The result can look remarkably strange, but strange doesn't automatically mean rare. Now, look at the reverse. The torch, the branches, the lettering, the open fields. Does the blue appearance behave consistently here too? If it does, that still doesn't prove a mint error. It simply gives us more evidence to examine, because we're trying to answer a much bigger question. Is there anything about this dime that cannot be explained by normal circulation or post-mint changes? If the answer is no, the investigation has a very ordinary ending. But if something doesn't fit, then the coin deserves another level of attention. And this is exactly why experienced collectors don't put a price tag on an unusual coin after seeing it for a few seconds. They identify it, they compare it, they document it, and when necessary, they authenticate it. Now, bring the 3 coins back together. The 1969D Washington quarter, the 1996D Jefferson Nickel with its reddish, damaged surface, and the 1970D Roosevelt Dime with the subtle blue shade. 3 coins that could easily be ignored, but 3 coins that demonstrate the same rule. The appearance is only the beginning of the investigation, and we're almost at the final answer. Because there's one last step, the step that determines what you should actually do if one of these coins is sitting in your own collection. Spend it, save it, or have it professionally examined? That's the final question, and that's where we finish the investigation.